Officially say we are launched. Welcome everyone to the Gen AI Network. We're a group of people passionate about solving problems using cutting edge technology. And today is a launch pad because it's the first of several workshops before our inter-uni competition. For everyone who is involved, please can you mute your mic? Maybe I just have to do that myself. Okay. So, for everyone who is involved, there's a clear understanding that, we want to solve problems. We want to, provide solutions. And we're doing this together with our partners, right? I want to yield the floor to Eric. He is our main partner because we've been on this together from day one. So really shed light on what we're trying to achieve and, what Common Ground stands for. Yeah, so you have the mic, Eric.
Good morning, everyone. Afternoon for some people, depending on what time zone you're in. It's 5 a.m. for me here, so you guys have to bear with me. But as Mike said, thank you everyone for being present. It has been a blast putting this program together. Most of the heavy lifting, honestly, has been on Instinct Labs and Falcon Arrow, but we are also happy to be here. So just to give a bit of background with regards to myself, with regards to Common Ground, my background is in information systems, and currently I'm working on a lot of projects as a neurosymbolic engineer. Some of the things I'll get into in the workshop that we eventually host in a couple weeks. With regards to Common Ground, we're primarily in the systems biology space. And so what you can think about with regards to that is we apply math models and machine learning techniques to biochemistry. That's pretty much it. So with regards to that, you can imagine all the things that, you might want to learn with regards to how cells and then tissues and organisms operate and evolve. And we're essentially mathematically describing that at the genome scale. And then from there, ideally, with the machine learning and math modeling components, you're able to perform descriptive analytics. You're able to perform predictive analytics. So like predicting, some of the things and the activities that will happen at a cellular level. And then ideally, you're able to perform some prescriptive analytics, right? So it's one thing to know, for example, some proteins might interact within a cell, and that's something that's reflected in a math model. It's another thing, to then be able to say, now that we know and we have this information, what's the best course of action, right? And that's like the traditional way we've always approached this field. But now with the advent of generative AI and with the advent of a lot of these transformer-like models coming online, there's so much that we can do in this space. So as a sponsor, in coordination with Mike and Stig Labs and Falcon, those are some of the things that we would like to put forward. But in addition to that, and more importantly, this program is supposed to be about you all, right? So actually, rather than even speak more on, on who we are and what we would like to do, I think the core questions are things like, for example, I have a couple of things written down here. And these are maybe like questions I hope you all will think about and even maybe shoot me an email on with regards to the answers or drop in the chat, right? So some of the things we would like to learn would be, what are some of the resources and tools that have been most helpful for you so far as you've been learning about AI and machine learning? And critically, what do you think is still missing, right? For everyone around the world engaging in this new era of AI and ML, their journey is going to be different. So what does this journey look like for some of us that are in Nigeria? I'm not currently in Nigeria, but I am very Nigerian. So that would be one critical question. And then from for some of the builders out there, what has been some of your biggest technical challenges while working with generative AI so far? Again, region by region, it's different for everybody. Some people have constraints with regards to data access. Some people have constraints with regards to compute access. Some people have constraints with regards to the infrastructure, right? You might come in here and say, hey, look at all these great things you can do with generative AI. But fundamentally, if there are infrastructure challenges that don't enable you to build some of those applications, what's the point, right? You can dream about solving things in agriculture, solving things in health, solving things in finance. But if there's that gap in the critical infrastructure, and we're just here offloading information to you all that is, yes, is helpful in theory, but you're not able to actually apply, that's a huge problem, right? So some of the things that we want to learn about, and then the other two would be what kind of support and resources can we as sponsors provide? What resources, excuse me, what resources and support do you all expect from us, right, as you go through the program, this program beyond? And please, like I'm not currently in the WhatsApp group. I will try to get into the WhatsApp group one way or another. But these are critical questions, right? You don't want everyone to just like hold their thoughts in their head with regards to some of like the constraints they're dealing with. We want to know, right? We want to make this as efficient as possible. And for places that we can, even if with regards to us ourselves, even if the current sponsors can't alleviate some of those constraints, right? There are grants out there, there are other sponsors out there that we can maybe try to connect with. But fundamentally, it starts with understanding what your constraints are with regards to presumably building or learning about properly some of these tools and techniques that we'll be talking about throughout the programs, the workshops, and then with the upcoming hackathon. And then one last question that I would like to pose to everyone with regards to as you're going along the program, as you're thinking about us, every time we come to mind, as you're thinking about generative AI in general, right? If some of these constraints can be alleviated, let's assume like we've done a great job with a new Nigeria. Let's just we pray and we assume that we're in that kind of space. If you had access to unlimited resources, what would you build? And if you're not a builder, what would you fund? Right. And these are just again some things that critically we would want to get an understanding of, right? It says a lot about an ecosystem when it comes to what kind of things they're aligned with, what kind of things they have an affinity for, and if there were corrective measures with regards to alleviating a lot of these constraints, you know what would your ecosystem look like? What would you want to contribute to your ecosystem if you now have this, the power of not just these models, but like better AI models in the future. So that's pretty much it. If some of those, if you have answers to some of those questions, you have thoughts around some of those questions, as we go along the meeting, please drop them in the chat. If you're a bit too shy, you don't want to, hey, like always, feel free to and I'll drop my personal email as well too. Feel free to email me just to be like, hey, we're dealing with this, we're dealing with that. Remember some of the things that you said during the opening ceremony. We want to chat with you about this, get your feedback on it. I'm always ears. So again, thank you so much to Mike and Stig Labs, Falcon. We are more than happy to be present and engaging in this. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that inspiring intro. So if you had unlimited resources, what will you build? So I'd like some answers in the chat box. I mean, we can just kickstart the workshop with that on that note. Um, I'd like to imagine that even before we joined the workshop today, we had in mind some cool ideas, or we've seen some cool things that we wanted to do. So I'm not seeing any answer on the chat box. I mean, chat box rather. Do I have to create a poll for us to do this? Maybe. Anyway, okay. Joshua said chat GPT, but African. How do you mean African? Is it like African languages or, I mean, that would be cool too. Oh, nice. Interesting. So for those of us who want to learn our African languages, that would be a good way to learn. We can have our own Nigerian Duolingo. It always bugs me. We don't have like one app for all Nigerian languages. I want to go there and learn everything. Meanwhile, you have Google, making serious innovation in the voice and audio space. I think the time will come when we will be able to have on-demand translation services. So that's a cool one. All right. Yeah, please go ahead, Eric.
Okay, I'm Joshua. Thank you so much for that proposition. Do you more so mean being able to engage with bots like ChatGPT, but in your preferred language? So, for example, like if you were an Hausa speaker, or if you spoke Yoruba, or I speak Igbo. So if you wanted to speak Igbo, that being a way rather than having to do it in English, and presumably that opening the door to so much more engagement with people that might not be native English speakers. Is that what you're getting at, or am I a bit off?
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about. And what I feel is there is a difference from making inference in a model that has been trained with English than a model that it's it traditionally trained with African languages. So there'll be some key details in such a model, but it will take a lot of things. But I feel there'll be a lot of stuff to learn from it.
Mm, this is brilliant. Inferencing in other languages, and how, what my hallucination look like in those languages. Great.
Exactly.
Awesome. Awesome. So just build up on that. Some of the challenges we'll be having will be in aspects like this. In fact, we're looking at local challenges. We're even thinking about it down to the infrastructure layer, because wouldn't it be nice you just have like steady internet in your school 247? Because let's be frank here, working with AI models is, I mean, it's quite expensive, right? Working with them can be quite expensive, building them and other things. It can be expensive, but one of our thinking is that, okay, we have a community who would like a scenario where we just don't, empower you by giving you, the skills and whatnot, or having one workshop. But we are thinking deeply about, what the infrastructural layer looks like. And part of that layer too is the data. One of the issues I had when, this current phase came up, because I was an early user of most of these models, I would go on Mid Journey and try to create Nigerian arts, and you'll be seeing things that are not really Nigerian. So that tells you that the training data, there were some issues, right? And even when I dug deep into what kind of training sets were used, I found that there was like not adequate representation of, Nigerian or our cultural artifacts. So yeah, and we would like a scenario where we actually power some of these initiatives, right? So yeah, Eric, if you can just take a minute to go to the questions and respond to them.
Yeah, I started typing in the chat, and then some more started coming in. Let's see. So Abdul said, a model that is able to teach kids even kids, I'm sorry, from a beginner level to an expert in a particular tech path. For sure. For sure. So going back to something what Josh mentioned, being able to again inference at different levels, right? It's one thing to be able to inference at a level that you've been trained at with regards to maybe if the data more so aligns with experts, for example, versus some of the things you might even see with some of the ChatGPT models where you can say explain it like I'm a 5-year old, right? So that being like a thing that shows true intelligence when you're able to simplify things, as Richard Feynman, a famous physicist, would usually allude to. So yes, definitely being able to you know go toe to toe with experts in their language, but then also being able to simplify these concepts at the level of anybody else, right? And provide them with good information. Dominic, I'm sorry, says, for me, what I want is particularly building an AI model in different fields like medicine, engineering, and so on, where these models can be called upon by anyone, anywhere. But at the same time, we need professionals from different works of life to build these models. For sure, something that's interdisciplinary. A lot of times, again, like, and this is something that we'll touch on when we have this workshop on neurosymbolic, right? Where you have a lot of these newer models that are more so not just necessarily machine learning driven, but that are more so pattern recognition driven, right? And so the neural aspect in neurosymbolic is typically things that are neural network based, things that are pattern based, versus you have the symbolic aspect, and for some of the mathematicians in here, things like mathematical logic, but even simpler, just basic rules, right? Where you're able to say, yes, you can perform this high level pattern recognition, but also you want to get, or you want to adhere to certain rules with regards to like how you're engaging. So yes, being able to have those experts provide some of those guardrails, provide some of those handcrafted engineering, so that when your model is inferencing, it's inferencing within the right spaces. So yeah, excellent. Joshua again says, for one thing, we should look into his hardware. I've been into AI since 5 years ago, but never set my eyes on a GPU. For sure. And again, these are some of the things, as Mike mentioned, that we're looking to at least try to bring some other sponsors around, right? Imagine if at each school, and I'm not trying to pitch dreams here, but imagine if at each school there was a dedicated server and a dedicated GPU cluster, right? Where you could build, you could actually like get a feel of like how GPUs work and what they look like fundamentally. Google Colab gives you access to GPUs, right? If any of you are familiar with building in Google Colab, but yeah. A GPT model for helping medical diagnosis, for sure. Again, these are the things that tie back. They sound great in principle, but when you're in mission critical positions, how do you vet that your AI model is actually reliable, right? You don't want your AI model to be hallucinating when you're diagnosing someone, right? Even if it has great accuracy with its training, you still want to be able to have some of those symbolic components in there where, yes, like it can do a lot of the pattern recognition, but it does them within reason, right? So these are excellent, guys. Thank you guys for the engagement.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Eric. So I think we are good to go with today's presentation. Actually, it's basically an introduction to the world of Gen AI. So it's a very watered down explanation of the current epoch we're in. But the idea behind it is just to give everybody, an offer for what we'll be doing at Gen AI Network at Gain, and also a way of thinking about, the current, era in tech that we are in, right? So Gen AI 101, or how to make machines do cool things. What is the coolest thing you've done with a computer? Like, if you have, had any maybe change in the way you build, in the way you create content. I think most of the change would have happened within the last 2 years, because 2 years ago we could not just go to a computer and be like, I have this assignment. Then you load the assignment into the text box, and boom, it spits out a whole essay, or even gives you formulas and whatnot. Right? 2 years ago we did not have ChatGPT, so we did not have the pre-trained transformers. And I was listening to Sam Altman in his recent interview talk about when he was in school, learning AI, and the profs then were like, "There's no point in using neural networks. I will tried it, and it's a failed mission, right?" However, the current epoch we are in actually benefits from those who are crazy enough to even go, down the rabbit hole when it comes to deep learning. And we can thank the guys at Google for giving us attention is all you need, because that was like the watershed moment. What we really experienced when we had ChatGPT was a system quite unlike, the search model, where you ask Google for, okay, I want to know, how to, let's say, make an omelet, and then it gives you like 1,254,321 search results, right? With ChatGPT, it's quite the opposite experience, because we have just a straightforward interface where when you ask for a question, it gives you the answer. It gives you without any stress. It just gives you, like very sweet responses, most times just straightforward. So it's almost like, the mantra by Portable. It doesn't stress you. It's just like your trusted partner. So what's really changed from 2017, till modern day computing era? Like, what really changed? What exactly did we, come about that brought this new era of, you can make and go to the computer, you can type, and it gives you images, it gives you even videos now. So like I mentioned earlier, what changed was, we had some group of researchers at Google who were able to come up with a new way of thinking and actually working with, training models, and the era of GPT actually started from, like, properly started from 2017, when this um, paper came out. Yeah, and it's quite funny, because even though they at Google came up with this, they didn't really produce ChatGPT, right? Instead, it was the guys at OpenAI that came up with ChatGPT. That's going to when you put things to work. In fact, I was into the founder of Django, I mean, the guy who made Django, the framework in Python. He said something very remarkable. He said, if you want to go back to learning, machine learning principles, learning AI from the ground, you won't really make much progress now. You are better off working with the APIs, working with the models, creating things. And that is our approach here too at Gain. We are more of thinkers and builders, right? There's a place for research, yes, but we are more of what things, we want to try them, we want to put them into work and see how we can move the needle as quickly as possible. So, for those who might really want to get a bit of a background on what the old Gen AI thing means, it's simply a branch of AI that, allows you to create. That is why the subtitle is how to make machines do cool things. 2 years ago, you could not just go to a computer and, ask for images, ask for even music, right? But now you can use Suno to create songs and launch an album in a day. Last year, during our Music Meet AI conference, we had the guy who created the first AI album in Africa. And his process was something like this. He makes his songs in ChatGPT, takes the songs, yeah, put them to a doc, edit them, right? Then he goes to all those music making apps and software, fine tunes the sound, and he was able to create an album within like a month or so. Something that was almost unthinkable, right? So this era allows you create. There's this emphasis on creation, but the reason we can create is because we use existing data and we're able to, make them create or predict new words or new sounds. So that is why the way large language models operate is they are prediction machines, right? So I'm not going to delve into the technicalities here because, like I said, it's going to be a very watered down introduction. But beyond that, I'm also aware of the fact that not everybody here is a coder, not everybody here is a developer. And it's good, what, this whole tech thing means and what people are talking about when they mention Gen AI. If you need a one sentence definition, yeah, you have it. So, I mean, of course, because of these, models, we have broad changes across industries. One of the most threatened industries, funny enough, is academia. How many of you have heard lecturers say something like, don't use ChatGPT for this assignment, or, some of you now are like using, Chat GPT. If you've had that experience, just signal with a thumbs up or probably just a comment on the chat. Have you had that experience where you're having lecturers, telling you like, okay, so we have, Tamka, yeah, Dayo, so Joshua, so it's everywhere. It's everywhere. They're all threatened. And why do they feel threatened? Can anybody, okay, Tamka, I would like you to have the mic and probably in your words, why do you think they're threatened by, just a software? What do you think is happening?
Good
Tamka,
afternoon, everyone.
yeah, afternoon.
Okay, so to the question, you said, why do they feel threatened?
Yeah,
Well, I don't know if they feel threatened, but to some of them, they feel making the student lazy. So, like, students are not
yeah,
really doing the work, just go there to
exactly,
copy. And to some of them, it's just like um, they want this student to stress themselves, like do the work back in those days where you have to like crack your head and do all those things. And
exactly.
some persons who do not want to go with this new or idea of AI. They feel that AI is making, I don't really know, but some lecturers they feel it's not helping. That's what they feel.
Okay. So I see Clara raise her hand. Do you want to go? What's your opinion about lecturers feeling threatened in quotes?
Okay, like the last speaker said, I don't think they are being threatened per se. It's more about originality of thoughts. Since everyone uses the Gen AI, it's almost possible for everybody to give almost the same prompt, and your prompting
Yeah,
is what determines your output. So when you use the same prompt, and then students can get lazy, because when you talk about research, is the more you read, you get more inference. But then when you use Gen AI, you're just asking your question and getting an immediate answer. So you don't have the option of exploring the other options before arriving at one particular answer. So I think that's one of the reasons
yes.
why Gen AI is being treated that way.
Awesome. So here's my follow-up. If we had AI that has, if you have AI that has your peculiarities, right? If we have customized AI that every time you ask it for something, it gives you something different from your colleague. Do you think, do you think like it will now become permissible? Can see Eric's hand raised. Yeah,
I'm not. Do I have audio? Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, those are great answers and concerns, right? And just to touch on what they both said, uh, with regards to the prompting aspect, it's a tool, right? So it depends on how they're being used. So going back to the lecturers, I think it definitely makes sense with regards to not wanting students to get lazy, not wanting to see the same watered down answers, but how are students using these tools, right? If you're asking a question, how are you asking the question? Are you asking the thing about, like, so for example, we're working on this system, and maybe a core basis of how people should interact with some of these tools is to ask these tools what more intelligent questions would be, right? If you have a research based question, maybe you should not be asking just for the answer. Or if you're asking for the answer, yes, ask for resources, yes, ask for, if not one, 20 different outputs, right? But then also fundamentally, like, one key thing that should be in the mix of being asked would be, hey, here are some questions I have. What are some questions that I might not even be thinking about relative to like what my knowledge gap might be with regards to a thing at hand? So I think like that component of like, and I think maybe that's where there's a divide is, maybe a lot of teachers and researchers have not seen how creative, quote unquote, students might be when it comes to actually using the tool. And just like a quick example would be like the calculator, right? When I was in school in Nigeria, we didn't use calculators. I came to the US. Most things were calculator based. And there was that like scare that, hey, like, you're using calculators now. You're not doing maybe you're not learning some of the tricks or doing the hard work that you would do if you're solving these things by hand. But what I wound up realizing about some of my classmates here, especially the ones that were more proficient in math, was they were so much more advanced because now they're these new skills that they've been able to learn when it comes to using calculators. Yes, you can solve things faster, but now maybe you have a deeper understanding about different types of graphs, right? For people that are not traditional with calculators, you might not do much graphing, right? You might do some simple graphs, but now you have this deeper understanding of how like maybe graphs are related because you have a graphing calculator and you're actually doing a lot of processing and a lot of solving with that tool. So yeah, I think it depends fundamentally how the tool is being used and how creative students are with using the tools. And that might be one thing that ties into something that maybe teachers aren't currently seeing. That might be the thing that really sets presumably this group apart from other groups with how we start learning to engage with some of these tools.
yeah. So I think Tanka has a hand raised. Do you want to follow up with that, or do you have a counter?
No, no, no,
Tanka.
no,
Okay. All
no.
right. So yeah. My my kind of position is that I think academia has changed, but they don't realize it yet. And there's proof in what Ethan Malik, professor of business management at Wharton. There's proof in his own experiment because when ChatGPT came out, he changed his curriculum, right? And instead of saying students don't use it, what he did was he tasked his students to do more with ChatGPT. So because normally in business school, you have tasks like writing business plans, coming up with negotiation, scenarios, so those common tasks they used to do. He realized early on that if you have a system where students can go to and get a full essay in 1 minute, you really can't be teaching the same way. So what did he do? He told students, go use ChatGPT, then of course you have to reference that you used it, but instead of your normal write one essay or this, you have to, create new businesses, create elaborate analysis, and even in some cases, create software. So he couldn't code before ChatGPT came. Now he codes in Python. Some of the students could not create websites or create art or all those things before ChatGPT. Now they are even launching businesses right there in class. So I would like anyone who has the time to probably visit his blog. I'm going to I'm going to drop the link here, right? Because he has been following up the experiment since like when we had Chat GPT. So he's one of the people that have been really, um, at the forefront. So that's his blog. So, and if you also you can read his book called Co-Intelligence. He really delved deep into how you can use Gen AI for work and for other parts of life. So yeah, George said, I mean, some of the lecturers encourage the use, but they call for a balance. Yeah. So in my mind, I think that is the ideal approach because there's always room for balance. You can't just be an extremist and be like, just use ChatGPT, don't learn. Or be like, don't use it. No, because in a world of AI, fully open AI, you're going to struggle when you don't use it because people that use it will be 10 times, 100 times more impactful than yourself. But I think the underlying question that brings is this. I mean, how do we learn, right? Because if we are saying that learning has to occur when we go through the painful process of looking for information, Googling, reading it, writing our own words. Of course, a tool like ChatGPT turns that whole paradigm on its head, yeah? But if learning is something beyond that, if learning now moves to you have a tool that can spit out information to you, but you still take the time to go through what it gave you and give it your own context. I think in that paradigm, learning too changes. So in psychology, we define learning as change in behavior or thinking due to experience or observation, right? So now we only change when we only learn when we exhibit change, either in action or in thoughts. That is when we can say learning has occurred. If not, you're just merely observing or merely in the experience. But the current paradigm, especially in academia, people go through school and they don't really imbibe the tones of lectures and many other things. So what we have in Gen AI is not just a critique of the system, but in my opinion, an advancement of that same system, right? But I like to think that you know the way in which we involve ourselves in using these tools will make us more creative, more powerful, and more productive. So large language models really, which are like the core of Gen AI, they are advanced models that can understand, generate, and sometimes even translate human language. This is very important to making sense of how Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini works. At this point, I want to take a break and just show you a brief example um, of something I made this morning with somebody in the community, right? So I took a LinkedIn profile and I fed it to Notebook LM. How many people here are familiar with Notebook LM? Thumbs up or just signal. Have you used Notebook LM by Google before? Notebook LM. Okay, we have one signal. All right, so what I did was I took a member of the community's LinkedIn profile and um, I fed it to Notebook LM. And of course, if you have used the tool before, you would know it has this feature called audio overview that lets you create audio. from text, from different materials. So let's just do a brief experimentation, of what that looks like, right? So bear with me 1 minute. I want to change my screen. So, okay. Can you see my screen? Now, this is what Notebook LM looks like. And after this workshop, you can, on your own experiment, try different things. But I really want to just show you what we can do. Now, the person's name is Deborah. I don't know if she's on this call or in this workshop, but she's one of the leads for OOU.
All right, so we're diving deep today
Yeah.
into Deborah Fatoki's LinkedIn profile.
Fascinating stuff.
And I'm so excited to uncover, what we can learn from her career journey
Right.
and how she's built this incredible personal brand.
Absolutely.
So just to give everyone a little background, Deborah is a community lead at She Code Africa, based in Nigeria.
Okay.
And she describes herself, get this, as a product designer, a technical and lifestyle writer,
What?
and a developer relations specialist.
It's a lot.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And all this with a focus on EdTech and Web3 products.
Impressive.
So clearly not afraid to wear many hats.
Right.
So that's what we're going to unpack today.
It's interesting because, most people think of LinkedIn as just this platform for job hunting.
Yeah.
But Deborah is using it in a much more strategic way.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's created this dynamic online resume
Mm-hmm.
that tells a story.
Okay, so storytelling, that's interesting.
It is. And it all starts with her. About
Mhm.
section. Most people just list their jobs and responsibilities.
Right.
But Deborah uses this section to really draw you in. She positions herself as this helper,
I like that.
right? Someone who simplifies tech, especially for newbies.
Okay, I see that, but how does she actually do that on LinkedIn?
Well, she does it subtly, like she's leaving these little clues. For
Yeah.
example, she mentions her dear 20-something articles,
Okay.
and the titles alone, life is so much more than affording that trip to the Maldives.
Oh, I saw those.
Right.
Yeah.
They suggest this blend of career advice, but also deeper life lessons. Weave them together.
Absolutely. And Deborah's profile is a perfect example of that.
Exactly.
So far, we've seen that she's a skilled technologist,
Yeah,
a community builder, and a lifelong learner with this knack for storytelling.
absolutely.
But what does it all mean?
Right. Good question.
What can we learn from her approach, even if we're not in the tech industry?
That's what we're going to unpack next.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways from Deborah's profile is that a career path doesn't have to be linear.
Right. It doesn't have to be this straight line.
Exactly. Hers is this this blend of multiple passions, and there's this clear sense that she's always evolving.
So, with Notebook LM, you can create audio. You can actually have AI give you a review of your LinkedIn profile. As you can see, that was 18 minutes long. Of course, we can't take the whole time going to Deborah's profile. But this opens like a window into the current era we are in, where you can take your LinkedIn, profile, put it into a system, and you have two voices, telling you what's good about it, what's not good about it, right? And what you can improve. I mean, it's almost unbelievable because 2 years ago we couldn't do this. 2 years ago is the stuff of dreams, but now it's so commonplace. It's free, but yet people are never taking advantage of it because almost like it's just one of those things, or maybe some just don't know. Yeah. In my case, I use Notebook LM to create a documentation of all the guide for aviation in Nigeria, because we have this set of documentation that guides the way pilots, flight planners, dispatch ops, right? So we have over 20 documents that the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority just launched last year, just released last year. And it's a whole lot of documents, hundreds of pages. And our pilots don't have time to go through it, right? Those in the quality management department don't have time to go through this very large documents. So I thought, having a tool like this, condense it, would be a good way for them to learn about it, right? And one of the most beautiful experiences I had was one day, one of our flight engineers, aircraft maintenance planners, just called me and he was like, I have this challenge. Do you think that your tool can help me solve it? Instantly, I went to the chat box and I just raised the query and it gave me the answer. I sent it to him and he was like, wow, this is quite incredible. So things we don't even count as being mind-blowing innovation are the kind of things you should be thinking about, solving. Your lecture notes, you're probably, you are into, you're a very good Christian or, a very good Muslim. You can, chat with these systems about what you studied in church or at the mosque or at the shrine, if that's your gig. So about these systems where like we're not able to go beyond just surface knowledge, but a whole lot depends on our ability to ask the right questions. Yeah. And it's one thing I've really been thinking about a lot. Yeah, I can see some here. I can see we have some herbalists here, and that's quite fine. Frankly, we don't judge. So um, just to continue with our presentation, um, you know, the main challenge for us really is to find creative ways to employ these tools. Why does it matter now, really? Healthcare is changing. One of the reasons why, we've had such productive conversation, myself and Eric, is that we have this love for solving problems in the healthcare space. In fact, that was how we met. Because last year, we hosted an event where, students were able to create, AI-powered systems, right? And I think the winner actually created something in the healthcare space. So healthcare has changed. You can create chatbots that, let's say you have something like this, you snap it. Okay, I have so and so challenge. Would this be a good thing to take? Now, here's the catch. You can't substitute medical knowledge with machine knowledge, at least not yet. In fact, there's a lot of rules guiding that, especially in places like the US. Also in Nigeria, we have some rules around what counts as medical or solid healthcare advice. However, the field of nutrition is one that doesn't really have such strict guidelines. Even in the US, they are still struggling with, okay, what is healthy fat, right? There's a lot of lobbying around what foods are promoted. In fact, if you want to really get a glimpse of how messed up that whole industry is, try and read the book, How Not to Die, right? So you need to have a trusted source of truth for yourself when it comes to your nutrition, when it comes to diet, that you can also go deeper into. And Gen AI is coming to be one very, very good source of even doing things like that. If you use Google, right, they have so many healthcare models. There's MedLM, there's a healthcare engine. And I would like you guys to really go back and try. Like go to Model Garden, see what is there, experiment, yeah, create stuff, make mistakes. But just know that at the moment, you have tools that can really shape the way people, take care of their health. Then also education, of course, we'll discuss that. But I really want to briefly touch on Canmigo. So if you know the Khan Academy, you may have heard about Canmigo. It's an AI assistant for teaching, right? And it's a very beautiful interface for learning because it doesn't give you the answer, but it guides you. It tells you, now, if student asks it, in what year was Abraham Lincoln born? It will just give you, okay, 1770, whatever. No. it tries to make you think about it. So I think for those who are like, AI should not give answers, but should help the learning process, this is a very good example of how you can build systems like that. And even when, when users change their behavior, Camigo can note that, okay, last year or last semester, this student's grammar was at say 70%. Now it's at 65 or 60%. What went wrong? Are they getting better at use of tenses? Are they struggling with the use of, commas, right? And it's able to even come up with like a model or a curriculum to improve on what it has detected as the student's challenge. So you can see that unlike your teacher who may be handicapped because they have 100 students, 50 students to deal with and can't give you one-on-one mentoring, AI like this can give you that kind of interface or guidance. Then also entertainment. I don't know who has seen, Joanne is awful. It was on the last Black Mirror. It was dystopian because it showed you that you can generate whole movies using just people's images, using just, one video that they shot, right? But I think the future of the movie industry is something like this. It might feel bad, it might feel off, but that is just the reality that a lot of movie, gaming, media is going to be AI generated. So here's my question, and I really want your input on this. Do you think we're going to get better movies as a result of Gen AI incursion into the movie and music or the creative industry? Do you think we're going to get better movies, or do you think quality is just going to drop down a cliff? Okay, can I see Raphael? Go ahead, please.
It means that direct the direct be implement what you want to do.
I really hear
Expect
you.
something. So, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes,
Hello?
yes.
Okay. So two sides to it. Yes, be part of the directors in the sense that look, directors can achieve creative autonomy on what they want to bring out from like story. I've heard cases of where the directors want to do something, but the actors are like, no, we want to do something else. You get, so they can achieve more creative autonomy on the part of directors. No, it's where they know from the act, and there are some actors that you movies that some guy that do this guy and yes,
We're really struggling to hear you, Raphael. Yeah, but I think I got the but I got the core of your position, which is that there will be some bit of maybe challenge with regards to direction of the movies. Like there'll
yes.
be clashes. Okay, so there'll be clashes between the actors and directors, and okay, and I'm also seeing in the chats that Abdul thinks that the quality will drop, but only in certain areas. What areas do you think? Because I'm seeing Clara saying that storylines will collide more, but the fantasy genre will thrive. So we think it's going to be a good year a good period for fantasy sci-fi. I think so too, though. But why do you think fantasy will thrive? Does it mean, that AI is more creative when it comes to, as in, coming up with scenarios in that field? Why do you think we'll have more fantasy, doing better?
Okay, so while I'm thinking fantasy is going to thrive, like the last speaker was saying, I don't know if I got his concept very well, but something about there are some things the actors cannot act out. Like there are a lot of stunts that humans cannot exactly pull out without making it look so mushed up. But if we are like using Gen AI to get these action figures out, it will be easier. So at the end of the day, we are veering away from normal human perception, which is why I feel like fantasy will try, because a lot of things that will happen. It's no longer going to be a thing of don't try this at home. It's like you cannot do this, but if you decide to do this, it could be like a death penalty kind of issue.
Interesting. Okay, so Kudus is saying that the quality of storylines will become more static. I think that's the same thing too that Clara said in her first sentence. So people think that we'll have similar storylines because, of course, ChatGPT. Okay, we have a couple of hands raised. You can see common ground. I mean, Eric. Tamka, is your hand raised or is it from the previous one? Go ahead, please, Eric.
Yeah, definitely. No, these are, oh man, I'm so happy to be here. These are definitely interesting perspectives, right? What I would position that we think more about is, again, going back to creativity, right? The creativity of the prompter, quote unquote. We can call it that. So when it comes to entertainment and it comes to specifically storylines, how much, and you'll hear me use the word intelligent a lot just because like my brain has started like doing that. So I apologize if I overuse the term. But how intelligent are we when it comes to the design of our storylines, right? Mike has mentioned the aspect of human psychology a lot, and it kind of dives down into that aspect of how much do we actually understand about humans when it comes to when we design narratives. Yeah, there are all these aspects that comes with movie making or show making, but if you had a tool that helped you to really almost perfect your narrative design relative to the audience, how do you then use that tool, right? If you're thinking about your plots, or you're thinking about your character development, or you're thinking about like just information that you might even have on the audience. Right. So I think like when it goes back to entertainment or any field, particularly, I think one very important thing that we should always consider first is how intelligent, first of all, the approach that we're taking when we think about some of these things, but how intelligent are the questions that we're asking, and are there additional questions that based off of our biases that we might not be seeing, just maybe our biases I just mentioned, but also to just the lack of understanding of the things that might go into some of these fields and some of these aspects.
Awesome. So I think there's a team here when it comes to, okay, Tamka, I don't know, is your hands raised for this particular question or was from the previous one? Tamka. Okay, I think it's from the previous question she asked. So I would like to just show one experiment that really tries to tackle this issue of creativity, trying to make it different, right? Because I think, yes, it's a legit problem when everybody is getting the same feedback. But what if for your use case, the AI knows how you think, the AI knows the things you like, the AI just knows stuff about you, and it's able to give you unique answers. So when ChatGPT was launched, not even up to 2 years ago, because it's November 30th, right? Um, it didn't have this memory feature where normal, your charts, your queries, where it stores some of those things. But right now, there's a memory feature on ChatGPT that allows it to, know things about you and keep them in mind. Almost the same way like we do as humans. We don't know everything about ourselves. In fact, in psychology, our memory is like a storyline, yeah, and it's the reason why we have a sense of self, because memory is a story we tell ourselves, which connects, our past to our present and guides how we behave. But the interesting thing is that your memory could be flawed, yet it will affect your sense of self. So that has immense implication for the way we behave, the way we think, the way we even try to, work. And it matters when it comes to creativity is that some of the things we have upstairs that we think are ours are not even ours, are things we've learned somewhere. So of course, everybody's stealing. That's number one. Secondly, the bulk of our time creativity is actually remixing. We're taking things from here, taking things from there, and making new stuff. But that's fine when humans do it. However, when machines do it, it's a problem, right? The problem is that if it does it at scale, then everybody gets the same storyline. And that is what Kudus and Clara have mentioned here, that they might have similar stories. What the guys at Hidden Door, what they've done now is they said, why don't you come build your own story, right, in gaming environment? So that is really the premise of Hidden Door. So you find yourself writing stories in game environments, writing stories and using those stories, to create games. So now it is being assisted by AI, funny enough, because the AI gives you the templates, but it gives you blanks. It gives you places to fill with your own words. So you are now the director. So in this kind of world, right, there is an argument for we can sustain creativity and uniqueness as long as we create AI systems that do not just focus, all our output to everything in very narrow streams. So why I'm bringing these examples and these case studies is that the way we think about AI, the way we think about large language models, the way we work with these tools are probably the determinants of how creative the output becomes. So we really need to dig deep into things like prompt engineering, things like, how we even think about ourselves as people. 1 minute, please. Yeah. So if you have the time, check out Hidden Door. I mean, they're doing great stuff there. And they give you more like an understanding of how we can build systems that maintain creativity while mixing human and AI input. All right, so we really want to try to see how we can round up in time because I planned for us to have this in 1 hour. I think the next field that really comes to mind when we're thinking about AI and using Gen AI right now is finance. And this is a big field. Why? Because who doesn't want to make money? Yeah. So recently there was this experiment that the guys at A16Z ran where they gave an AI some money to use on the crypto markets and it ended up making a whole lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars. And there has been talks, around how can people leverage such systems. I think the first example is somebody who gave ChatGPT $100, like more like he said, I have $100. What business should I use to, turn this into like 1,000 or so? And you can literally do this, but this is the catch. Does it know enough about your context, your skills, your environment? That's why in Nigeria, where the currency is like, dancing salsa every other day, these are the issues. So when we don't have this AI trained on our context, we might struggle. That is why having solutions like what the guys at OpenBB have created is remarkable. They allow you build your own co-pilots, your own finance co-pilots. You bring it to their platform and you can use it to create your own models and analysis and trade with it. Use it for real estate, crypto, normal corporate finance. I mean, it's a whole different world out there. And what it means for you now is you're empowered to do a whole lot more than you would have done without this kind of system. So yes, Gen AI has changed finance. And of course, we have robotics. We have seen the guys at Boston Dynamics, even OpenAI too, really wants to go into this field. So I would like to close here by asking, what does this mean to you? I mean, since ChatGPT launched, how has your productivity, creativity, coding, how has it changed? Has it made you better, or do you think you are lazier? What's been your experience, guys? I would like to know. Yeah, Raphael.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Can I hear you?
Hello. All right. So the thing about ChatGPT, not I don't actually use ChatGPT. I use Copilot and Cloud AI sometimes.
Okay.
And the thing I noticed about using them, it made it easier for me to learn frameworks that I was not familiar with, and it made my work easier. It's not that I'm lazy; it makes me more productive. In fact, if I was able to build something like let's say 8 hours, now I can do it in like 4 hours and use like the remaining 4 hours to like tweak it to be better and look more beautiful. And for me, it's not making me more lazy, it's making me more productive, and I have more time to do other things. That's what I think.
Awesome. Awesome. Dayo. Dayo, you have your hand raised. Can you tell us your experience?
For me, it is coding. So I started learning Python. This is the 19. So I picked up a course on Udemy, Abi, yep. So when I was done with the course, so for me to start coding, it was not that easy. So but what I did was I'll go to AI. So it will give me is like a starter code. So it will tell me like I should do this. Then we continue building up on the program. I build like I'll add more features. Yeah, I add more feature to we like build a nice program. So it's like making me better till I can finally on my own build my own program. So
Awesome.
there has been progression.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm glad to hear this because some people are like purists when it comes to code. So they'll say things like you have to learn, how to, create um, um, binary trees, or you have to learn software architecture, clean code. Those things are good, really, right? But like I would always go back to what Simon really said. That's the co-creator of Django framework in Python. If you're going to take that route, you would struggle in this age because a lot of people will just advance. So there are guys, young guys, actually making apps, viral apps, just by going to ChatGPT and saying, I want to help people look better. Give me a roadmap. And when it gives them the roadmap, they take the roadmap and be like, give me code for a minimum viable product, right? Make it easy to create in HTML, CSS, and React Native or something like that. Yeah. Okay, I think I have hands raised. Um, Someone raised their hands. I don't know if I missed it. So, I mean, there's only that. There's only that. Raphael, do you want to add more to what you said, or it's just from our um, answer you gave?
Sure. Like I was saying, the time it reduces. number one. And you said something about learning all those software architecture and everything. The beautiful thing about AI is that I don't know if this is the way every person interacts with it, but when I'm interacting with it, this is what I notice. All those architecture, by the time you are studying the code, you're going to see this architecture there. And
Yeah.
it makes it easier to, in the sense that it's easy to look at an already built structure and replicate it than trying to use your mind to create that structure and try to like tweak it. AI gives you the opportunity to like see the structure and see if you can move it. And if you want to also still replicate it, you understand, okay, this is how this thing is structured. Like, let's say you want to create a function now.
Mhm.
Function that can move something from A to Z. And the function is basically move this to from A to Z. Even if you read several plenty books on Python, it's not going to give you, it's not going to like put it in your head that okay, this is how you're going to do it. You still have to like try and figure
Yeah.
out how you're going to do it and everything. In fact,
Code
sometimes
it
you even
yourself.
go as far as
Mm.
watching tutorials. Yes, go as far as watching tutorials and everything. But when AI does it for you, you get the mindset that okay, the function is moved from A to B, and you see how it's done, and you can replicate it any day, anytime. And if even if you then understand that okay, the instances okay is just the parameters from A to B. This instances can also work from X to Y or from Y to Z or from any parameter, and you just understand the basic things. And even without AI, I don't know if this how everybody works with it. You can still work with even without the presence of AI, especially when you get to understand the paradigms that are that are associated in code and everything. So that's that for me, sure.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, that's really on point. So there's
Hello?
one thing I want. Yeah, I hear you. So that's a very good, I mean, experience-based opinion. So I think, in my view, I would always advocate for moderation here. It's good to learn the fundamentals, right? It's good to, I mean, if I would even want to probably advocate for how people will learn, I would first say maybe your first few months, study books. That would be my own process though. If you have the time, I would say just like read books, code, right? Learn that kind of hardcore way for a couple of weeks, then onboard AI. Like the jump in productivity that I mean, you can now leverage your knowledge from those deep fundamentals and really be very powerful because most people now are using AI and are so good at it. And people that have actually learned these things from a pre-Gen AI era. So of course they'll kick your ass because they have that advantage. So that when AI hallucinates, they're able to actually self-correct. However, there is the argument that these models are getting so good that their rate of hallucination is so low that it's even like a waste of your time trying to correct them. Instead, you give them the error output and they just sort themselves out. So there's that argument too. And for what works and for creating the best products with limited technical depth, I mean, but creating delightful experiences for your customers or your users. That'll be where I stand. But from what I've heard, many of you have gotten so much out of working with Gen AI, and it's beautiful to see. I would like to have a session on using Gen AI for research. For those who be writing their projects, their thesis and stuff, so a way where you learn how to conduct your thesis ethically, save yourself time, but also create very quality research using AI tools. There's this recent program by Stanford, Storm, and it does research. Like it basically does research. It gives you good citation and all that. It's still in its early days, so of course that's its issues. But that's the future of research. That's the future of what many of those fields look like. So Hamza, your hands are raised. Do you want to contribute something or so if we have no contribution, I think
No, it's just a mistake.
okay, no problem. So on that note, we come to an end with today's introduction, to Gen AI and how you can make machines do cool stuff. I think I've tried to really look at how we can create text, create code, images, storylines, and video. I didn't really touch on them, but one thing we are doing is we are going to have a repo of all the best models you can use for every single task you can think of, whether it's coding, whether it's text creation, whether it's video generation, from both the common ones to the ones that are not even online, like most of the good ones are in China, funny enough. So we are really doing the research. We are meant to launch it on Friday, but took a step back because we need to do extra work on that. But I think this week we're entering now, you're going to have that repo so that you can build, so that you can create, so that you can actually have a lot of fun, exploring Gen AI. Also, we're having some partners, like we've mentioned, come give talks, come give workshops. Theirs will be a bit more technical than this, right? And you will create. Yeah. I'm hoping that even from today's talk, if you're taking one or two things and you're going to go back and try stuff and check out those guys that I mentioned. But even if you don't do that today, in coming sessions, we have those where you actually code and create stuff, or they see how they build systems using Gen AI. So that is really the heart of what game is all about. We want to raise the next generation of AI innovators, and we are really keen on skill development. We want to also build collaboration and networking. So we will have a channel where you can chat and online on WhatsApp. If you've noticed, most of the channels you can't chat, you can't talk because we want to just be clean, right? We don't want too much interaction, but we'll have a specific channel for networking. Then also, I think the main thing people want to know is the hackathon. How will it work? What will you be doing, that week? So here's the way we're thinking about it. In fact, every school should start thinking about their team because each school will send a team, right? And each team is expected to showcase a software-based solution that is AI powered. So we have our team of judges, rank them, and of course, give the prizes. As you all know, first prize gets 1 million, second 500,000, third 300,000 naira, please. So that's for that. So start thinking about how they're going to organize within your various schools. We would have given room for more, but it will not be fair if some schools have like 5 teams and some have like 2 or 1. So has to be balanced, and it's going to be 1 team per school, right? But beyond that, everyone who participates should, at the end of the day, have at least a portfolio or a project, whether you are a coder or not. There should be one thing you can say, okay, I took out from being involved in the game bootcamp. So, for instance, if you are a writer, you can create a custom GPT. Yeah. Even if you're not a coder, there are things you can do without code. So, one of the things we're going to really try and narrow down on is getting people who are not coders to build software, to build products, to create solutions, right? So even if you don't code, don't worry. We're going to make sure that you create at the end of the day. And I think You've met some of our trainers. Some are not here, but we'll be having all of them come give talks and workshops on different topics. So we are in Stick Labs. This is our home base in quotes. So if you are around Yaba, feel free to pop in at 369 369 Bonue, Alagomeji. So, but do give me a call before you come, because I'm not really a stickler for going to the office, but I will make sure I get them to give you access. Then also, we're also looking at having in-person sessions for those who are in Lagos when the time comes. But we'll also make efforts to visit different schools that are involved during the course of this program. So don't be surprised when I pop by in your school and be like, hola. So I think with that, we can call it a day. This is my email. If you have questions, if you have contributions, if you have observations, do let me know. And thank you for taking time out to really join today's launch. It's been an awesome experience. So yeah, questions, please. Yeah, thanks, Kudus. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Raphael, please. Go ahead, please. Yeah. Yeah. Raphael, you have the mic.
Oh, pardon me, I didn't even know my hands were on. I didn't know my hands were on.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. All right.
Sorry, it
So
was a mistake.
no, it's fine. It's fine. It happens so much in on Meet. That should be a UX issue. I don't know. Okay. So one other thing I didn't mention too was the fact that there's also a heavy design component to the program, because what really stands you out most of the time is your ability to create delightful experiences. Something that really gets people coming back to your product. So we are really thinking about it end to end, from the research process to the user interface design process too. So if that's your jam, really, we'll be having resource on that. We'll be having trainers on that too. So, but don't hesitate to hit me up about any issue or anything you're thinking about creating. If I don't know, which I don't a lot of the time, I'll find a way to get somebody who can guide you, right? If I do know, I'll give you links, I'll give you guides, and also try to power your products or your solution. So yeah, that'll be all for me. I don't know if anybody has any take, but in closing, Eric, do you have any final word to our participants, our members?
Yeah, no, I just want to say again, thank you all for participating. Thank you all for also staying with us the entire hour and a half. The only additional thing, I think this has been my theme, and you hear this from me a lot, is with regards to that component of what questions are we not asking, right? A lot of times we're in these situations where we either come in looking for answers or we come in with answers. But less so do we, usually take the time to ask, hey, I'm asking these questions, but maybe what are some additional questions that I could be asking that I'm not asking that will give me a lot more insight into this thing that I'm trying to gain intelligence or insights about. So the thing that I would leave, I'd like to leave you all with is, myself and Mike, we've talked a bit about, some of the things that we would like to see happen. We've thrown information at you. We've asked you some questions as well too. But the last question I would want to leave you all with is, what questions are we not presumably asking, right? And that's something that would help us again to fill in some of the gaps and alleviate some of the constraints that we just might not be aware about. We might think we're asking the most intelligent questions with regards to how to engage with you all. But if you all can think of some questions that we're not asking, that might give us some more insight into how to be better sponsors, better hosts, better trainers, better hackathon collaborators. That would be an excellent thing to get some ideas around. So with that, yeah, thank you all for having me, my team, and for the other sponsors as well too.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll be signing out here. Do have a very lovely, lovely weekend. And remember, keep creating. Have a nice weekend.